welcome. We're going to go ahead and get started with our first breakout session, even though we're staying in our larger room. Because we're in a larger room, but we're a smaller group, if you're comfortable moving in a little bit, that would absolutely help with our panel discussion, just to come a little bit closer. So if you're kind of sitting on the edges or sitting around and you're willing to come a little bit closer, that would be fantastic. But thank you so much for joining us for this late morning breakout that's entitled Strength in Unity, Building a Recovery Community Through Peer Support. We're very fortunate today. My name's Allison Green. I'm here from the IU School of Public Health. I'm honored to be here with my esteemed colleagues, with Heather Rodriguez, who's the Vice President of Mental Health America, Indiana, Recovery Advocacy and Programs, the Director of the Indiana Recovery Network, and the Interim Director of Indiana Addiction Issues Coalition. So thank you, Heather, for joining us this morning. We are equally grateful to have both Megan Cunningham and John Cunningham here representing Recover Out Loud, John as the founder and Megan as the co-founder and executive director. And we are going to speak for a little bit. Heather's going to provide a bit of an introduction to recovery community organizations, what they are, a bit of foundation and principles of RCOs. Then we are going to get to hear from our Recover Out Loud representatives, John and Megan. Unfortunately, Charmin Gabbard, who is a close friend and partner in the Connection Cafe with me, I'm a co-founder with Charmin, Charmin's unable to be here today. So I will talk a bit about the Connection Cafe as well. And then we will open it up for questions that everyone has. So I'm going to serve a little bit as moderator / panelist. I'm channeling my Charmin, and we'll do both, okay? So we're going to roll with it, and we're looking forward to it. So without further ado, I'm going to turn things over to Heather.
Thank you. Is this thing on? Yes, sounds like it? Okay. Thank you for the introduction. I just want to say thank you for allowing us to be here and share this important information about the work that is doing in communities all over the state of Indiana and nationally as well. So. For short they are essentially grassroots nonprofit organizations that are created by the recovery community for the recovery community. 51% of the board of directors or advisory board has to be people that identify as individuals in recovery from substance use disorder or co-occurring concerns. These organizations provide no to low barrier access to recovery support services through peer services. They do education, advocacy, some legislation work even, and they are not exclusionary, meaning they provide services and support all pathways of recovery. They do not promote just one specific pathway or program. They really are accepting of everyone, every pathway, whatever that means to the individual. And so here in the state of Indiana, we do add that to our definition of RCOs. They cannot be membership-based, pathway-specific, any of those things. It's really about community and serving the entire community. So a little context, and I do have some talking points to keep me on track because I can get in the weeds and talk about RCOs for a whole hour, and it's not all about me and the work we're doing. So the model of recovery community organizations was actually created by Faces and Voices of Recovery. Is anybody familiar with Faces and Voices of Recovery? Okay, a couple people, awesome. And so they actually identified this model back in 2001. And from that time, they have created the national standards and best practices, which we follow here in our state. So Indiana Addiction Issues Coalition, one of the organizations that I oversee, had a SAMHSA grant from 2017 to 2020. Part of that grant included bringing the model to the state of Indiana. So some of our staff went to a boot camp by Faces and Voices, 2 days, to learn about the RCO model. We brought it back to the state of Indiana and started spreading the word about RCOs, just doing advocacy, education, outreach. Part of that was technical assistance, helping organizations transition into the model or even working with individuals to start an RCO for their community from scratch. Since then, we've worked with a lot of organizations. So that's kind of how it got brought to the state of Indiana through Indiana Addiction Issues Coalition. Also, a part of that grant was to create the Indiana Recovery Network. Has anybody heard of the Indiana Recovery Network? Oh, woohoo, thank you so much. Okay, so part of that was to create the IRN for short, and the IRN serves as the state's recovery resource locator. We have now over 100 organizations that make up the network, and about a third of those are RCOs. So it was to be a recovery resource locator for individuals, families, and organizations to really learn about what's in our state, but also to connect RCOs to one another, to break down those silos and to really create bridges so that we can better serve Hoosiers all across the state. So from then, the IRN is now its own organization under MHAI. And we, MHAI, IIC, and other state partners did a little bit of advocacy work, because that's really what our foundation is, to expand Recovery Works billing. Anyone familiar with Recovery Works billing? Okay, so I can save that spiel. Okay, so we worked to advocate for changes to that legislation to expand Recovery Works to recovery community organizations as a form of sustainability for the organizations, but to connect people with peer services outside of treatment settings and recovery residents, which, as many of you know, that's initially what Recovery Works billing was for. And so we were able to pass that legislation thanks to support from our state legislators, and that was signed into law in 2021. So from there, the state wanted a certification for RCOs to ensure the best practices and fidelity of the model were in fact being followed and met, right? And so they knew about the work we were already doing in the state. And so we partnered with the Division of Mental Health and Addictions and Recovery Works to create an RCO certification for the state of Indiana. We implemented the best practices and standards from Faces and Voices of Recovery, met with them to let them know the why, right? Because they've been great partners with us for many years. But then we went and added our own standards for the state of Indiana in partnership with DMHA and Recovery Works. So it was actually a collaborative process, right? It wasn't just IIC, IRN. It was a collaboration with DMHA and Recovery Works. So we piloted that certification in early 2022 with 5 organizations. 4 of them became certified, and then we opened it up to the public in the fall of 2022. So now we have 23 certified RCOs in 18 counties, with 3 more in the process of becoming certified. 2 of those organizations are actually based here in Monroe County. So we're hoping that maybe by the end of Recovery Month, we'll have 3 more that are certified, at least 2 here. That would be great. So I think that's enough information at the moment. And so I think I'll pass it on to Megan and John.
All right. My name is John Cunningham. I'm a CPRC2. It's a certified peer recovery coach. I also work for Johnson County Adult Probation. I am the founder of Recover Out Loud, and also a certified CrossFit trainer. And I like saying all that stuff because at one point in time, I thought I'd be nothing more than my addiction. My favorite title is that I'm 12 years in long-term recovery. After hearing Heather speak, definitely want to get into Recover Out Loud and kind of the grassroots efforts and the experience that we had creating this organization and kind of the hardships that we experienced at first that led to it. So back in like 2018, at this point, I have about 6 years into recovery, and I've been trying to do it the more traditional ways through like AA, NA, things like that. And for me personally, now my heart always races with this story because it hit me hard. It was hard on me. I didn't really feel too accepted in those programs because I didn't really work the steps and didn't really have a sponsor. Things that were working for me was things like team sports, going out traveling, hiking, any kind of community-oriented thing that I could get myself into. These seemed to be the things that were really working for me. And I noticed that when I would do these things, I usually had to do it with people that wasn't in recovery. And I didn't really like that because I knew I wanted to experience life with people like me who lived clean and sober in a recovered lifestyle. So in 2018, I found myself probably one of the loneliest positions that I had been in my recovery, period. And during this time, I started thinking, how can I find my people, basically, is what I was thinking. How can I find people that think like I do? Because there's no way I'm the only one. No way. Couldn't believe that. So me and my best friend at the time got this wild idea. We're at Montana Mike's, and we're like, we need to create something. And this is back when stuff like this wasn't really going on. It wasn't popular yet. And the first thing we came up with, and it was our original name, was It's a We Thing. I don't know why we said that. I'm glad we got away from it. Recover Out Loud sounds way better. But the reason we chose Recover Out Loud, and this is still true to the mission today, is we wanted to spread recovery as far as we could get it. And I knew to do that, we had to be loud about it. We had to be proud of who we were, where we came from, and where we're going. And I thought, what better way to do that than to, and this sounds crazy still, to create these meetings and just go live on Facebook and start sharing our stories shamelessly. And I didn't know if it would work or not. I'd never done nothing like this. So we broadcast that we're going to do this, and some people in Greensburg, Indiana picked up on it, and we created our first meeting in, I think it was September of 2018. And I had no idea who was going to show because we just put this on Facebook. To my surprise, we had about 18 people show. I knew then that we were onto something. And what was really cool about this whole experience and why I love the grassroots effort and the passion behind it is when we turned those cameras on, I realized that the communities that a lot of times we feel indifferent in supported us. They were ready. And by our second meeting, the support and love that we experienced is something that I will never, ever, ever forget. There were people bringing us water, food, asking us, what do we need? We're proud of you. I can't believe you guys are doing this. And at that time, I mean, the courage that it took to do what we did and the support that we received on the other side of that was love like I'd never experienced before. In our second meeting, we went from a park and we were like, you know what, when you get bold and it works, it makes you feel good, So we want to get more bold, okay, this is going to work, let's do this. So we went to the courthouse and had our second meeting on the courthouse lawn. And this is a spot where a lot of us have had bad experiences at. And we wanted to change that narrative. We wanted this to be a good spot. We wanted this to be a place of positivity. And next thing we know, man, things are taking off from there. I mean, rapid speed. We have our news stations reaching out to us. They're putting us in the newspaper. People are coming from all over the place. We end up having meetings 30, 40 strong, and things really, really begin to take off. And that whole process is what it's all about, because we were just a bunch of recovering people trying to come together and do the right things and live a recovered lifestyle. And what we ended up doing is it ended up spreading all over the place. So we ended up going to places like Rushville, Bartholomew County, Brown County. We're in Johnson County. We have chapters in Terre Haute right now. And we ended up creating a brand of recovery that I never knew we were creating. People want to be out loud about their recovery. They want to share their experience, strength, and hope. We don't want to feel shameful anymore. And more than anything, we want to feel loved and accepted. And I realized after about 6 months of doing this, I'm really good at the passion part. I can bring all the passion you want to. And so can most of my friends. We're good at it. But we need help. And I needed somebody that could dot the I's and cross the T's, because I didn't really know what I'm doing on the business side of things. And I didn't even know we were creating a business at that point in time anyways. Had no clue. And I got lucky and met my future wife, Megan Cunningham. And without her, I do not believe Recover Out Loud would be what it is today. So I'm going to let her speak on her part in this, kind of talk about our successes, our challenges, and what we hope to see for the future.
Thank you. So my backstory in the Recover Out Loud is a little bit different. I didn't come into recovery from substance use or addiction or anything like that. I was a family member who grew up in the lifestyle of addiction, had both parents who had addiction in their history. Ended up losing my father to his addiction in 2016. In a lot of codependency relationships. So I had a lot of baggage that came in my life due to the trauma of just growing up in the world of addiction. By 2018, I had just ended a 3-year relationship with someone with opiate use disorder, and that was what I call my emotional rock bottom. That was when I realized that if I didn't change my entire life, I was going to keep repeating these relationship patterns. And also, I wanted to break the cycle of addiction in my family. I have 2 younger daughters, and I needed to be a role model for them. So I committed my life to a recovered lifestyle and started my healing journey, which is how I got introduced to ROL. Same situation. I had tried different types of programs that were related to families. I had tried different programs to just try to find my own pathway to recovery. I could never find my niche. It was usually just something that just didn't quite fit me all the way. So Recover Out Loud was the first group that I came along where the people asked me, well, what about Megan? What does Megan need? What does Megan want? And it wasn't about my family and the other people in my life. It was, how can we help Megan? And it was the first time I felt supported in my journey. So coming from the background, I've been in the career of the field of addiction since 2014. I started in a rehabilitation center where my father was rehabilitated at. Started as an intake coordinator, and I quickly knew that I was going to serve in this field the rest of my life. I just didn't know what capacity that would look like. Became a recovery coach for a few years, did a lot of case management, community-based services. But I also knew that we were missing the mark somewhere. We were forcing our version of what recovery looks like for our clients, and we weren't allowing them to advocate for themselves of what that looks like. We required 5 12-step meetings, even though this client says, the church is my recovery, but we weren't supporting that. And so I found myself always advocating for my clients to my supervisors and saying, why are we not supporting what is working for them? Eventually, I decided to go out on my own and take a big leap of faith and say, I'm going to figure out how to do this differently. Started off as a freelance journalist. Writing is a part of something that I'm very passionate about, and using my words to help people express their stories of recovery and the initiatives that communities were doing. At this time, it was in Madison, Indiana, saying instead of publicizing someone getting arrested again, or whatever negative story that we can come up with because negativity sells, why don't we promote the positive stories of recovery? Why are we not showing the business owner who just opened up a business and they have 10 years in recovery? Why are we not highlighting the successes? So I try to use my skill that way to start really promoting recovery in a positive light. And somehow all this just kind of aligned with meeting John, and we started putting this vision together of, I'm like, you have something really great here. I think we can make it greater. I think we can really run and create something that allows other people to share their own stories of recovery and find their community of support, no matter what that pathway looks like for them. From there, we started working on the process of it becoming a nonprofit. About a year after the start of the first meeting, we had an attorney who donated her time and helped us establish our bylaws and put the application in for our 501c3. We thought, okay, we made it. We got our 501c3, we're good. No. Every step we've taken in the success challenged us to do more work. We realized then that this was going to be a full commitment on top of managing full-time jobs. So we were fully committed to the mission of creating this organization and figuring out how can we help serve this recovery community in the capacity that only people in recovery can really do? And how can we partner with the community to figure this out together? So at the time, we started partnering with Celebrate Recovery, some sober living homes in Greensburg, Indiana. We ran our first banquet dinner at the time as a united banquet. It was one of the most successful banquet dinners that they had. And we started realizing that unity and collaboration was going to be the only way to be successful in this. We ended up moving into Bartholomew County in February of 2019, and that was now our hub, our headquarters, and partnering with ASAP Resource Center, where we host our meetings at. Since then, we've had a lot of great successes, from being featured in a documentary, The Addict's Wake, which was a huge platform for us to share our story, John's story, recovery, and ROL. We were able to have multiple public speaking engagements, winning different types of awards for recovery support and as a peer. We were able to get people credentialed into getting their certifications as peers. And then, we've even attempted to open up our own fitness center, community center. We created our own curriculum of the RFIT program, which is a recovery fitness-based program. We were able to, we're in the process of trying to figure out how to make that an evidence-based program and expand that across the state. And working along with Columbus Regional Hospital to assist with that. We were able to receive grant funding to purchase our first set of fitness equipment for this event. We got our first state health department grant for the RFIT program. A lot of successes. Up until the most recent one is becoming a certified RCO in December of 2023. Again, we made it. We got the certification. No. Still many more challenges ahead of us to figure out, okay, we have the certification. How do we utilize this certification to better enhance the other work that's being done in our community? We're trying to figure out how to formalize partnerships with other community stakeholders, because there's a lot of benefits that come along with the RCO, but then there's a lot of setbacks that come with being an RCO as well. So how can we compensate that with working our strengths together and resources together with another organization that may have what we don't have, and vice versa. So we're trying to just figure out what collaboration with community partners really look like as an RCO. We recently just got approved to move forward with our Recovery Works billing, so we'll be going through the training of that. Again, just more the next level, challenge us and more work to figure out and what to be done. So, just understanding that from a grassroots organization, we had no intention of getting to where we are today. We believe that it's really just as important just to stay true to the mission, no matter where the journey takes you, and that the recovery community is our first priority, no matter what. And if that means we continue to volunteer ourselves, even if the funding doesn't come, the work still has to be done. And that's something that we really hold true to. Because the funding doesn't always come, and we have to figure out how to engage our people and still do fun things together, even if we don't have the finances to cover the services that we do. So the mission is really what has carried us through.
Great, thank you so much. So I'm going to share a little bit about the Connection Cafe in Connorsville, Indiana, in Fayette County. And I see many of you here who I know are missing Charmin here, as am I. But I will share that the Connection Cafe, Charmin and I have been working together from the very beginning. The Connection Cafe has grown out of a community academic partnership, which started with an organization called FSPP, Family Services Prevention Program, where Charmin was doing some contract work, and the IU School of Public Health, where I work, we had together worked on and received a federal grant from HRSA, the Human Resource Service Administration, And it was just a one-year planning grant. We felt very lucky because it was very focused. It was first of all, for those of you that have had federal funding, many of you know that you're often kind of thrown into the programming aspect. And so to have a full year where we could really go and extensively plan in terms of what will it take to impact change in this community, to address, which at the time, Fayette County was, of our 92 Indiana counties, the highest rate of overdose mortality in the state, at 91, basically 92 per 100,000 people. So that was in 2019. We spent a year talking to as many folks as we could with the help through this partnership with FSPP and Charmin really taking the lead, and our team with IU School of Public Health. We were very integrated in our work together. We conducted focus groups with people with lived experience. We talked to, interviewed folks in education and law enforcement and local government and leadership, of course with treatment and mental health. Really just talked to as many community members as we could from diverse sectors to really get input on what is the extent of issues, what's some of the intersectionality with poverty, with mental health, with homelessness, really to kind of understand. And we wrote up some plans, and we were very fortunate that the following year we had applied for funds, again with HRSA, to implement our plans. And so we received a 3-year implementation grant to put what we had drafted into place. Now, during our year of planning, it was really hard for us not to just start to do things in the community, right? Because we're seeing all this high need. And so one of the things that we did do during that first year that's really at the core of the roots, and it's really part of the makeup of the cafe, is that we brought back and rebranded the harm reduction program in that county, which had been operating for a little while, really with one passionate public health nurse who there wasn't really enough infrastructure. That person moved from the public health department to the hospital, so the program moved with her, but it was very difficult to sustain. As we know, when you don't have the additional support, you don't have the partnership and buy-in and collaboration, so that program went down. So we went before the county commissioners who were concerned about bringing back the harm reduction program. We garnered a lot of support. We leveraged a lot of relationships. And so in the spring of, the spring of 2020, we relaunched the syringe service program as what we called at the time the Fayette County Harm Reduction Alliance. And it was just Charmin was our only employee, part-time, right, one person. And then as we know, 2020 came and things changed, right? And I should mention that the partnership, part of the agreement to relaunch the harm reduction program was because we really leveraged partnerships. We were very fortunate. Meridian Health Services was unbelievable in offering space. And so that's where we operated out of. And Aspen came and did our HIV testing. And so it was all this collaboration that really started us to have this strong foundation, in addition to, of course, having federal funding, which is no small thing in terms of trying to get a grassroots activity off the ground. So we were able, even through kind of that first spring with COVID, Charmin just moved the services outside into the parking lot. And so we operated under a tent. But actually, we started to realize that, and folks were coming from multiple counties to get services. And then when there were challenges there, Charmin put the supplies in a backpack. And some of you that know her know she's a runner, and so she would deliver supplies to folks. So we did all we could to kind of make things happen, but we realized that approach really wasn't sustainable. And when we were writing that implementation grant, Charmin and I at the time, we were in Washington, D.C. at a grantee meeting, and the application for the implementation grant was about due, and we sat there in this cafe for hours, and I said, we have all this data. We know all this information. We know all these evidence-based practices that work. what do you really think it's going to take? And what we realized was the most pivotal thing was a physical space. So that really was our emphasis. So we wanted to house our services in a physical space, and we wanted to integrate our harm reduction services and our recovery services under one roof, acknowledging that we all live in a continuum, right? We're not the same people at every moment in time. And so that we need to kind of treat services that way too. And so it was really key for us to have a physical space. So in 2021, we opened what we call the Connection Cafe. We had an opening. I know many of you that are here today were there, and we're grateful. And Charmin became our executive director, and we started building our services. To actually get the physical space, we had money for rent, but the space didn't look anything like what Charmin had imagined. She had a picture that she'd had from Instagram that she'd downloaded and said, "This is what I really want." And just as John was kind of saying, people came out of the woodwork from the community. We had been kind of, hesitant because, as you know, there's a lot of stigma, there's a lot of resistance, right? There are a lot of naysayers, but there are also a tremendous amount of people that want to help and that don't know how to help sometimes. And so we had masons come and put in stone. We had someone that had reclaimed some wood from worked with telephone poles and kind of made beams. We had made them into benches. We had all kinds of folks that came and volunteered their time and helped make the physical space into really very close to what that Instagram picture looked like. And we began offering mutual aid groups. We began kind of being able with that implementation grant to hire, train, and certified more peer recovery coaches. And things grew very quickly. We also worked with a pro bono attorney to get our 501c3, which came through in 2022. And then we worked hard for the RCO certification, which came in the spring of 2023. The amount of services that we've been able to provide every year has just increased and increased. We've expanded the physical space. We've been able to knock down walls. I can't remember if it's 3 times or 4 times now that we've knocked down walls and expanded. I see Sherry's trying to count. 4 times? Yeah, so that we do have a beautiful space, because people deserve to be in a beautiful space, not in the basement of some building where, you're drinking cold coffee out of a styrofoam cup. People deserve to have a beautiful space to come to. And so I do just want to kind of share, we've grown from 1 part-time Charmin to 14 certified staff. Charmin's trained over, have put through training over 30 different people that have become certified. We have a 24-hour harm reduction vending machine out on the outside of the building. We have, the locks boxes strategically placed throughout the community. We have a shower. We have laundry facilities. We have Whitney's Closet, which is a space where folks can come and get clothing or material goods, which is dedicated to a local woman who completed suicide, and her parents wanted to make a difference and do something and meaningful that people are now benefiting from continually. I can go on and on about the service, but one of the things I'll kind of wrap up by saying, we also serve as a hub, I should mention, for 7 counties. We, through state grants that we're super grateful for, able to do street outreach, which is a big aspect of our approach. But the main kind of part of our model is really about the integration of having harm reduction and recovery services together. And I said that our model is really that integration, and that's what's really important. What has allowed us to really be so successful, and what are some of our key tenets, is really about having the organization really be led and staffed by people with lived experience. That is key. Of course, more than 50% of our board, but Charmin and all the staff are folks with lived experience. So that has been key. We also operate under the principle of serving the whole community, that everybody is welcome. We're open every Friday night and every Saturday night for pro-social activity. And if you've ever been there, it's busy and fun. And it's a great mix of people because, as John and Megan were saying, fun activity is a big piece, having outlets for engaging. And as we heard with the keynote this morning, that connection and connectedness is so key. We use, of course, a person-centered approach, trying to very much meet the needs of each individual, recognizing that folks have diverse needs, and try to be as low barrier as possible, right? We have our brick and mortar space, which has been critical for us, but we also go out and serve wherever we can and try to help folks with what we need. And we wouldn't be able to do that if we weren't leveraging resources and collaborating and partnering with folks to benefit from existing services. And so that's probably been, I know for us, a really big takeaway is that we don't have to do this work alone, right? There are so many people to connect with and partner with to make things happen. So one of the things, I guess because, I'm a researcher and do really want to measure outcomes and impact, we have watched the overdose mortality rate in the county go down every year. So from 2019, we're in 2020, where we were at 92 basically people per 100,000. And by 2021, we dropped to 62.6. In 2022, we dropped to 43, and we've dropped further for 2022, we've dropped further for 2023. Those numbers are still provisional, but the decrease from the time we've opened has been over 53%. So that feels really impactful. So I'll pause there. I'm going to put on my moderator hat for a second and ask some questions of the panel. But we also will be sure to leave, we'll just do that for a few minutes, and then we'll be sure to leave some time for questions that folks here may have. So one of the questions that I think is relevant for everyone on the panel is ideas and strategies that you have related to compassion fatigue or preventing folks from burning out. So Heather, I know you work with folks across RCOs, so you must get a lot of that as well. And then John and Megan, I'm thinking that for you all as well, that's a real thing that I know in many of our different areas folks deal with. So how do you keep your staff healthy? How do we keep our peers doing well?
Grace can go first.
So I will say that the people in the recovery community are not the thing that I get compassion fatigue with. Our entire life and friends are all people of recovery who have been a part of our community in some capacity, whether they stay engaged or move on and enjoy their life and just stay connected with us. It's never the day-to-day work that I get burnt out on. Sometimes it's just navigating the political landscapes, figuring out the grant funding, the logistics, the business, and the administrative side of things is sometimes where you just kind of get burnt out. It's like, can I even still do this anymore? Do I even want to still do this anymore? But the people, the community is what keeps us going and kind of push past that quit point. Also, as people in recovery, we learn one thing, and that's boundaries. You learn that very early on, how to set boundaries, and you have to be able to implement that in every aspect of your life, from work to parenting, all of it. And I think we've done a really good job holding boundaries in our own life, of just knowing when I need time to myself, I need time to disconnect from the community, I need to take a break from programming. I don't put this pressure on me that we have to have something all the time. Sometimes it's okay to take a step back and say no to things. We also travel a lot. We spend a lot of money on travel. I say that's my therapy, so just having moments to ourselves to have that quality time as a married couple with our family, that always seems to help reset myself. a lot of, reading, journaling, and a lot of quiet time seems to help keep my mind engaged and focused and not getting too overwhelmed and stressed out.
So one of the organizations that I oversee, Indiana Addictions Issues Coalition, is also a certified RCO and is actually the state's oldest RCO, so shameless plug there. But so we do have a small peer team, and one of the things we do is we provide peer supervision on a weekly basis. That is a best practice and is also one of the standards for certification, just FYI if anybody's thinking about becoming certified. So the best practice is 1 hour of peer supervision per individual peer per week, and then we do bi-weekly group supervision. So during those supervision sessions with our peers, we'll ask, do a check-in, like how are you doing? We do a recovery management plan for our peers to make sure that they are staying aligned with their personal recovery, whatever that looks like for them. Ensuring that they have a balanced caseload, right? We don't want them to have too many people on their caseload, so what can we do to move around? Ask them, I'll say, how does your plate look, right? Is there something on your plate we can remove and then not fill it up with something else? Because we often do that, right, as helpers. So that's one way we monitor it. And then also, just having transparency, right? I have team members outside of the peer team, because we do a lot of different things, who will say, you know what, on this day of the week, this evening, that's my weekly recovery group meeting. So I would prefer to not have to do anything on that day of the week. And I do my best to make sure that I don't ask them to do anything on that night of the week. Sometimes we can't, right? And they know that, and so one-off situations. But we really do try to accommodate schedules for personal recovery time. So that's like my own organization. And then with other RCOs that I've worked with, again, if they're certified, they have to have a standard in place that talks about self-care for their team, as well as their volunteers and participants, right? Because everyone needs to be well, right? And so there's a standard in place. They have to have a policy. They also have to do that weekly supervision to ensure that our team members are taking care of themselves and our leadership. Other organizations I've worked with, because I do work with RCOs nationally as well. So one, for example, that I just visited in Colorado, they have a peer recovery team embedded in healthcare settings. So for those peers, they work shorter shifts, especially the peers in the ER, because that's a high stress environment, or peer teams that work in the jails. So depending on like the different environments in which they work, maybe they have a lighter caseload. So trying to find that balance, right? Because peer work is hard, right? Peers are individuals in recovery, right, with that lived experience. So we have to always ensure we're checking on our own recovery and wellness and making sure that we're finding that balance.
So this is a good question for me, because I probably have issues with this. I like to burn myself out to the point my body gives out and I have to listen to it. But I like life that way. One thing that differs for us right now is we don't actually have a hired staff. So I can't implement anything there. Now, looking at myself, I have the advantage of having a therapist at Johnson County Adult Probation who I ask to supervise me once a week for an hour. And that has been very good for me, to the point where I refuse to miss that meeting. It gives me a chance to vent, to share my own concerns or burnout or whatever, and that's been able to keep me going. But for me also, like going to the gym, that's my self-care. I love that. I never leave there feeling bad. In my sports teams, I'm a softball guy. I've recently gotten into pickleball, and I gotta place my my addictive tendencies somewhere. And pickleball has its hooks in me right now. So, every week I'm like, when can I play pickleball again? But I really enjoy that time. It really does. It resets me, and it gets me back on track. I feel like me again.
Great. Thank you. I'm looking at the clock and thinking at this time we'll open it to questions. And if there aren't as many, then I have plenty more for the panel. But let's see, just to give you the most benefit, what questions do folks in the room have? Thank you. Nobody's got a mic. Yeah, it looks like over here.
First off, thank you all for being here. This is amazing. One of my questions is, I'm in a fledgling nonprofit called Just Us Civil Rights. We provide services to folks going through the systems. Like, I'm an authorized representative for folks. Do you find that the need for self-recharge, recovery, the things that you all are talking about, do you have struggle with that with the older generations that would just push through and get the job done, not naming any X generations? I'm curious, does that come up regularly where you have people volunteering or working who don't ascribe to that self-care that I also find necessary? Because my addicted self, I'll burn myself out and I'll know it. I'll be like, I have about 3 weeks till I need to take 3 days off. So I just want your thoughts on that, if you could.
So just for clarification, it sounds like it was almost a two-part question. So recovery support for aging populations and then self-care for... Okay. So can you repeat that again? I'm sorry. I'm trying to... So, because I know, so like the aging population thing is big right now. So I just want to make sure I'm answering.
So I guess on both sides, when you say, I have a caseload of X, and you have a client or someone that you're helping that says, well, why can't you do this now? Because I am important, I need this, and you have to set that boundary. So both with clients and those that might be older within your organizations.
Okay.
Does that clarify?
So it kind of like, yes. Okay. So as far as with, so in RCOs, we say participants because we don't provide clinical services. So just that notation there. So for participants, that's where the peers really need to set those boundaries from that first interaction when an individual has expressed, I want to continue receiving services. So the peers will let them know, this is when I'm available. They give out a Google phone number, not their personal cell phone number. And then if they need peer support in the hours in which the peer is not on shift, we also have peers available through 211, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, even holidays. Shameless plug again. And so that's also a resource when somebody might just need that connection, but they're not in crisis mode, so really wouldn't be a call for 988. They just want somebody to talk to. So 211 is always there through the peer line. So again, we encourage and talk to our peers through supervision, set those boundaries early. And it's hard, right? Because as people in recovery, a lot of us are people pleasers, right? We don't want to make anyone feel bad or get any kind of ramifications, right? They think I don't care about them, when in fact we do, but we have to care about ourselves as well. And so that's one way to do that, just be transparent from the jump. And then as far as like guiding team members that may be a little bit set in their ways, I guess we'll say, right? So again, that's a lot of professional development as well, and it's not even just about how do we set boundaries, but there's a lot that goes into professional development, right, for anybody, right? And so it's a lot of training, education, demonstrating. Everybody learns differently also, so tapping into that person's learning styles and then adjusting our teaching styles to meet that person's needs so that they can kind of comprehend what we're trying to express. And then monitoring, that's why that peer supervision piece is so important. Does that help a little bit? Okay.
So like we mentioned, we are a volunteer-based organization at this point, so we don't have particular staff. We do have people who run our support groups in different meetings, and some volunteers in different programs. I will say majority of our participants in our community or the leaders of our community are within the range of 30s to mid 40s. We don't have too many that go into the older ages. I think with ROL, the recovery industry in general has evolved a lot from when someone may have recovered 10, 20, 15 years ago. So I think a lot of it is just helping people understand that the way that we may recovered ourselves may not be what our participants are recovering as. So again, a lot of education, a lot of going to things like this I know has helped John and I a lot, just learning what the new trends of recovery are, how we can support people, because there's something always different. There's something always coming down the pipeline, and we have to stay informed so we're not being biased to a new path that's coming down. And I think that's just for anybody who's going to be in this line of work, no matter what age they are. You have to remove your own experience of recovery and be open to whatever new pathway is forming. Recovery industry has tremendously boomed in a very short amount of time, so there's going to be a learning curve for anybody, especially someone who's been in recovery for decades.
Yeah, Lori. So just a question, how do you know where the
Lori,
are across the state?
Lori, everybody wants to hear your question.
Can you repeat it?
I was just curious how you know where the RCO locations are across the state. Is there like a state map that would tell if you're trying to refer individuals?
Great question, Lori. Thank you for teeing me up for another shameless plug. If you visit the IndianaRecoveryNetwork.org website, there is a tab at the top that says RCO certification, and then there's a drop down that has find an RCO on the map. And so we have a map there, and with all these little dots, well, not all yet, because there's only 18 counties that have them. Hopefully we'll get more. And then you can hover on that dot, and it'll bring up the name of the organization, and then you can click for more info, and it takes you to their profile. You can connect directly to them via their website through there.
Thank you, Penny.
I should have worn my running shoes.
I just had a question about how do you get other recovery out louds to different locations? How would someone start a meeting elsewhere?
It's really an easy thing to do. What happens is most people will message me on Facebook, website, phone number, and say, hey, how do we do this? We have a host guide. We'll come down there, kind of go over what it looks like, give it to them, and let them run with it, because it's not ours to keep. So we're willing to give it out to anybody who wants it. They rotate hosts, so it should be able to form itself and keep going. And that's how we've done it so far. So the process ain't real formal, but it's easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the main requirements when someone asks if they can start up a support group is someone who's in long-term recovery, who's willing to take that commitment on, in the beginning stages to form the community, and then also a location with hopefully with another community partner who's willing to host that space. So you just need someone who's willing to be the leader of that meeting to build up the community, and someone who's willing to donate the space. And then we have the leadership guide to kind of walk through the philosophy of ROL, how to manage, how to run a support group, and all the logistics around that. But we made it a pretty process to streamline in any community. Yeah.
What other questions do folks have? We have time for at least maybe one, maybe two more. Yeah, thanks, Sherry.
I haven't been on the IRN.org website in a while. How many of your recovery groups or your RCOs are grassroots started? Because I feel like there's a lot of recovery out there. There's a lot of places to go, but the reason why people are gravitating to Connection Cafe and Recovery Out Loud is because it's not an organization, it's not a business, it's a program, it's a helpful, it's friends, it's people. So I was just curious how many of them started or are still maintaining some grassroots connection and working with their community and not just being their business.
So all of them, because that is a criteria for being an RCO. If you are a certified RCO, you have to meet that criteria. When we do the certification process, we meet with organizations, we review their bylaws, their policies and procedures. I mean, it's a process, right, as any certification should be. So all of them are based on a need by the community, for the community, and led by people in recovery. Yeah.
And I will say that the other recovery cafes, because they understand the grassroots and the process, they were very helpful for us figuring out our own process of applying for the RCO application. I don't know how many times we got on a Zoom call with Heather and it's like, are we doing this right? Are we ready for this? We started talking to Heather back in 2019, and we weren't ready then. But between the other RCOs that have mentored us, big shout out to One Voice. They have been a huge mentor to us in this entire process, as well as Charmin, who really helped us when we were ready to start applying for that RCO. So it is a overwhelming process at first if you try to do it alone. So lean on other RCOs, reach out to other organizations because they understand the process that they went to because they started from scratch themselves.
And if I could, real quick, because I forgot to say this earlier during my spiel. So the Indiana Recovery Network does provide free technical assistance to any individual organization that wants to become an RCO. We also offer free trainings on all the kind of pieces and parts of being an RCO that do have CEUs also. So there have been organizations that I have personally provided technical assistance to for well up to, if not over 2 years until they became certified. So we really do want to help organizations and communities succeed in becoming a certified RCO, and we'll walk alongside them throughout the entire process. We just can't do the work for them, but we do want to support them. So just know that that free help is available.
Wonderful. Well, I wanted to take a moment at this time. We'll thank our panelists so much, and thank you all for your questions, and we'll conclude our panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you.